There are consequences. That's the title of today's Daily Dose devotion. Look, I remember my son and his college friends were excited about a spring break trip that they were planning to take to California. And while doing a happy dance, one of my son's buddies yelled, "No consequences!" And of course, we laugh at that now, but wouldn't it be great to live in a reality where there were no consequences? But hey, that's just a dream world. That's a dream world that pops into the minds of naive college boys. You see, in the real world, the world that God created, there are always consequences, good or bad. See, there's a natural law of physics called Newton's third law of motion that states for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, for every action, there's a reaction of equal force. In other words, there are consequences to our actions. And just as we're responsible for our actions, we're also responsible for the resulting reaction, the consequences. The Bible calls this the principle of sowing and reaping. And this principle works both positively and negatively. Scripture says that the one who sows righteousness reaps a sure reward. That's Proverbs 11. But whoever sows injustice reaps calamity. And we find that in Proverbs 22. So to think somehow we're exempt from this principle of sowing and reaping, of consequences, of action and reaction, it's arrogance and it's foolishness to think it doesn't apply to us. To say that you're not responsible for something that you empowered is to stick your head in the sand. You're deceiving yourself. Scripture says, don't be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. That's Galatians 6:7. God cannot be mocked. A man, a woman, a person reaps what they sow. They're responsible for whatever the consequences are for their actions or inactions. Well, last November, there was an election. Tens of millions voted for one platform and tens of millions voted for another platform. And in January, the party representing the platform of pro-choice, meaning taxpayer-funded abortions and abortion on demand, the party that was pushing for the rights of pedophilia and pedophiles over our children, over the safety of our kids, the party that's wanting to control our religious practice under the guise of this thing that's coming out now called the Equality Act, the party who promotes a cancel culture instead of promoting freedom of speech, religion, and freedom of ideas, they took control in January because people empowered them with their vote. And 14% of those who voted for these policies call themselves Christians, Jesus followers. And they helped empower these actions in our country. Now, some have criticized me for speaking out so strongly during this whole election season of last year, speaking out about the political platforms and the importance of voting for pro-life candidates. Well, I would do it again and probably even louder. Be even louder about it because why? Babies' lives are being lost even right now as a result of what happened in November and then through January, and it's already happening right now, the end of February, the beginning of March. Babies' lives are being lost. Our children are being abused and confused, and our freedoms are being stolen. We're reaping what's been sown, and it's tragic, it's evil, it breaks my heart, it makes me sick. Let me share some of the latest news that's come out, the latest reactions to the actions that were taken earlier in our nation. See, we can't stick our head in the sand. We must recognize the reality that what we do matters and who we empower in our nation matters. Elections matter, and those who empowered this must own it. See, here's the latest. We're once again putting our daughters and wives at risk by allowing men to invade the women's restrooms and locker rooms. This is evil. It's just wrong. It's crazy. We're encouraging our little children, even as young as kindergarten in our public schools, to experiment with sexuality and to question their gender. And we're even moving forward with funding and instituting gender reassignment procedures for grade school children. This is craziness and it's evil, but this is the reaction to the actions of who we empowered as a nation. But here's the biggest and most evil thing of all. It's abortion. Tens of millions of people in this nation, including those who call themselves, some who call themselves Christians, voted for and empowered a political party who promised to increase, in writing and with their mouth, promised to increase the number of abortions, not only in our country, but around the world. And they are doing just what they promised. The recent COVID relief bill has $50 million set aside for an abortion slush fund. And this relief bill also excludes the Hyde Amendment protections, meaning that there are no safeguards against over $400 billion from being used to cover elective abortions. And now I'm going to tell you what, they call this the COVID relief bill. I don't think the unborn would call this a relief bill. And this injustice is happening because people empowered it to happen. They cast their vote for this to happen. Remember what Scripture promised us. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man, a woman, a person, a nation reaps what it sows. Galatians 6. And in Proverbs, but whoever sows injustice, remember that, will reap calamity. I know this is a heavy topic for a daily dose, but the church has to talk about these things. We need to be big boys and girls. We need to grow up. We need to be adults and not be afraid to deal with the heavy stuff, the real stuff that matters. I know we're frustrated with gas prices going up, but in light of the things we're talking about today, that's nothing. This is real stuff. And we have to stop acting like ignorant college kids who believe that they can live a life with no consequences. This is where the rubber meets the road, where our faith goes from happy thoughts in these ethereal doctrinal platitudes to actual real life action and results. James said it this way. He says, but some will say, hey, you have faith and I have deeds. And then James says, hey, look, I'll show you my faith with my deeds. I'll show you my faith by what I do, by what I empower, by the actions I take. I want to end this short little discussion with a short prayer. And I just want to say, Lord, help us. Lord, help us. Lord, awaken your church. And Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.